Welcome to the Ready Room Podcast. I am Josh, and today we're going to be talking about ammunition selection. Hope you guys enjoy. All right, so for those of you who are watching on the YouTube channel, thank you guys so much. You will notice that I am still in the upstairs setup because there is no guest for today. So it's just me solo. I saw no need to move everything back downstairs into the recording studio. So hopefully this will be okay with you guys. You can see some nerdy stuff in the background like last week. But I'm excited for today's topic. But first, before we get started, if you are watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It's the best way for you to help the YouTube channel is to like and subscribe and comment, which boosts engagement and helps push us through the algorithm. We are a very small channel as of right now, especially on YouTube. All the help we can get would be much appreciated. So thank you in advance. If you're listening to the podcast on podcast sites, the best thing you can do is to leave a review. That is the number one way to push podcasts on, Spotify, Apple, Google, Stitcher, all that stuff. The best way to help us is to leave a review. Other ways you can help would be to share with your friends. That would really go a long way. We are growing every week. Every episode is growing, and we really appreciate it. We have officially broken the 500 download goal that I had set for June. We are now past that, and it is almost the end of May. So thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. All right. Today's topic is ammunition selection. In a current market where most people can't really afford to put a ton of money into ammunition, being smart with your ammunition choices or your ammunition selection is important. So what ammunition performs well in each situation? What is considered range ammunition or plinking ammunition, air quotes? What is good for hunting, self-defense? What ammunition is good for match grade, target accuracy? That's the kind of stuff I want to go over today. But before we go into those different situations, I want to talk about ammunition identification. Identifying the correct type of ammo is very important, and I think it's under taught. It's not spoken about enough to new gun owners, and it can seem kind of confusing at first. There's never been a wider range of ammunition choices on the market than right now, ignoring the COVID supply shortages. There are different calibers, quantity, quality, manufacturers of said calibers, price points, and much more. That all kind of goes into what you can buy. So, if you're new to the firearms world, it can get confusing pretty quickly. So first, I think we should go over some basic identification so that you can buy the correct ammunition for your firearm and not run into dangerous situations. The way ammunition is identified can be, all over the place. From metric measurements to decimals of an inch to, simple names for the ammunition, it can get really confusing really quickly with how all over the place it can be. So an oversimplification, a quick oversimplification is this. If there's a number by, and when I say by, I mean an X, when it's written, it'll be a number by another number. Right? And that's a metric measurement more often than not. And an example of this is the very common 9mm by 19 or 9 by 19 millimeter, right? This is the common 9mm you hear about in a day-to-day basis. Excuse me. It is one of the most popular handgun and pistol caliber carbine cartridges in the world. And when you look at these measurements, the 9 by 19, the 9mm that starts off the measurement is the diameter of the projectile itself. And the 19 millimeters after the X, after the by, is the length of the case, the brass case, right? So 9mm by 19 millimeters means a 9mm projectile in diameter by a 19 millimeter long case, okay? So you also have 9mm parabellum, 9mm Luger. These are all just other names for 9 by 19. So don't stress about that if you're a person looking to buy ammunition and you say, I want some 9mm, and they say, what do you want? We got some 9mm Luger here, and you're like, well, I don't know if that's the right kind. 9mm Luger, 9mm Parabellum, and 9 by 19 are all identical, okay? They're completely identical. Don't worry about it. But that does not mean all 9mm, cartridges are identical. For example, the Russians used a 9x18 millimeter, which is not the exact same. And there's also 9mm Kurtz, which is 380 ACP. Okay, so don't just think 9mm, my gun says 9mm, I'm good. Really make sure you identify which 9mm that is. If your 9mm says 9x19 or 9mm Luger or 9mm Parabellum, well, it's all the same. Okay. If it says 9mm Kurtz, well, you're really looking for 380 ACP, which is the the more common nomenclature in America, right? And this is a good time to transition into the American measurement system for cartridges, which are often decimals of an inch. For example, 380, 308, and 223. Right? These all start with a period, a decimal point. So it's 0.380, 0.308, 0.223. These are all examples of a system that is defined by a decimal of an inch in diameter, and that means a projectile. So, for example, 380 is supposed to be 0.380 of an inch in diameter, the projectile itself. 308, which is a very common rifle cartridge, is almost identical to the NATO metric measurement cartridge 7.62 by 5.1. That 7.62 is your 30 caliber projectile, or 308 projectile, and the by 5.1 is the length of the case, right? It's just a metric measurement of the same cartridge. It's not 100% identical. The only substantial difference is that 308 has slightly higher pressures on average. And then you have something like 30-06, right? And this is something, if you're in the South, you've heard it all the time. 30-06. This is another very popular rifle cartridge, and its measurements a tad different. The .30, the 30-aught, or the 30 before 30-06, is 30 caliber, which is just like 308. And the .06 is for the year it came into production in military use, 1906. So that can be confusing, but as you get used to the firearms world and identifying ammunition and different cartridges, and learning which firearm goes into, or which firearm accepts which cartridges, it'll get a little smoother. Just understand, if it's a number with an X after it followed by another number, that's a metric measurement. And if it's a decimal point that starts off the number with usually 3 numbers after that, it's an American, measurement system. And then you have things that have different names, like 6.5 Creedmoor. Well, it's a 6.5 millimeter cartridge. Or sorry, I'm going to mess people up just making mistakes on this podcast. It's a 6.5 millimeter diameter bullet. And then Creedmoor is the name of this setup. Technically, it's an old military surplus cartridge that's been renamed. That's a whole conversation for a different time. But just know that, if you need a 6.5 Creedmoor, your gun will say 6.5 Creedmoor. You're not going to own a 6.5 by 55 firearm and then it, accepts never mind. I'm not going to get into that. But just know, you want to go off what your firearm tells you to put in it, okay? These things are specified. If it says it wants 380 ACP, you get 380 ACP. If it says it wants 32 short, you get 32 short, not just any 32 caliber cartridge, because there's a lot of them and they're very different. So just pay attention, guys. Don't let it scare you. Pay attention, and when you're buying the ammunition, if you're worried, ask someone who works there. More than likely, they'll be able to help you out. Okay, as long as they're knowledgeable. So now that you have a basic knowledge of how to identify the correct cartridge for your firearm, which is, to make sure that you buy exactly what it says on the firearm and, be safe about it, we can get into what kind of ammunition you should buy. And I would like to state that I'm not sponsored by anybody whatsoever, especially not ammunition companies, okay? Everything that follows is purely my opinion and, the standard for what everyone kind of agrees on, okay? We're going to start off the first section with range ammunition, okay? This is ammunition that is cheaper, usually, and doesn't hurt your wallet to shoot at paper targets, mag dump into cardboard, or just generally plink, for practice or training or fun or whatever it is that you're doing, okay? This is cheap range ammunition that you don't mind just shooting, okay? It's generally lower quality because it's not made for ultimate accuracy or reliability. Some examples of this would be Winchester white box, old school Remington. I forget what they called it, but it was their green box ammunition that was really cheap, especially 9mm. Federal has a training white box as well. They're all made for range practice. They're not made to be the best ammunition on the market. They're made to be affordable and shootable. Okay. When I'm shooting my carry handgun, right? So my personal carry handgun is a CZ at the moment. Or if I'm shooting my Scorpion, PDW, or it's not really a PDW, it's a pistol, but semantics. If I'm shooting these two different 9mm platforms at the range for practice, or for reload drills, or for transition drills, or whatever I'm doing, I personally prefer Fiocchi 9mm ammunition, simply because I've had really good luck with it. It's just been good for me. Before the COOF, it was around $8 a box. It was not very dirty ammunition. It was reliable. Its recoil impulse was very consistent. I found an ammo that worked for me, and I stuck to it. Now it's up to, oh man, I think that same ammunition is now up to like $20 a box, maybe more. It's over doubled in price. I'm not sure. I'm not really buying much ammo at the moment. Can't afford it. With the Winchester white box, I ran into reliability issues with those exact firearms. The Remington 9mm was some of the dirtiest ammunition I'd ever shot before. It was like shooting blanks, and for anyone who's shot who has shot a lot of blanks, like for instance in the military for training, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's filthy. Okay, it was awful. Federal generally is pretty decent as well. Sig's target ammunition, I don't mind that much, but I do have one issue with it, which is that I had an inconsistent recoil impulse. Very inconsistent recoil impulse from 6-hour ammunition. I've only shot a little bit of it. After a couple boxes, I was like, the training just, it doesn't feel right because I'm not getting consistency. I'm getting, very inconsistent recoil impulses from an ammunition. I'd rather not deal with that. So that's not to say it's bad ammunition. Just, those the anecdotal experience that I've had myself. This is not a shot at any of these companies that I've, talked down on in this episode. This is just personal preference and personal experience. Right now, it's hard to be picky because if it's very hard to be picky with ammunition right now, guys. Usually you get what you get. You don't throw a fit. You buy what you can, okay? But if you do happen to have a small selection to choose from, look into the different ones that are available and see what your firearm likes. See what you like, okay? You might prefer Remington. Okay, it's fine. It's not a big. I'm not telling you what to buy. I'm just giving you some examples of things to think about with range ammunition, price being one of the main driving factors for all of this, okay? There are also pistol caliber ammunition types with a synthetic coating around the projectile. This reduces friction, wear, fouling, or so they say. This ammunition, though, is really specifically made to be safer when shooting steel. It reduces the fragments that break towards you when shooting, once again, so they say. And that's really popular for competition shooting, practicing for competition shooting, or just shooting steel targets for fun. Federal makes a really good line of this called Syntec, but it's often sold out in stores. I haven't seen any in stores in a long time. Look into this ammunition if you're going to be doing a lot of shooting on steel with pistol caliber firearms. This might be something to look into. Not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's not like match grade, expensive stuff. So just keep an eye out. Maybe you'll like it. They also make them really, really heavy, so there's even less instances of issues. Let's just put it that way. What's also important, is knowing your firearm. Firearms are like cars. Despite someone having the exact same gun as you, they may not both like the exact same ammunition. Every single gun is different, and some firearms are more ammo picky than others. Try a couple different options and see what your firearm specifically likes. For example, my AR-15, when I'm range shooting, it loves American Eagle green tip, which is also owned by Federal, by the way. That's 62 grain 5.56 NATO ammunition. That stuff's no longer affordable to shoot on a regular basis like I used to. I used to only shoot green tip at the range. If I was shooting an AR-15, you could guarantee I was shooting green tip. I've had to play around with a couple different cheap options, like Wolf Gold, American Eagle 55 grain, etc. I've had to really diversify and figure out what else my gun likes that's not so expensive, okay? And it didn't used to be expensive. You used to be able to get, what was it, 150 rounds for like, no, not 150. You could get 420 round boxes for like $150. That's what it was. It was $150 for 400 something rounds. That was a good deal back in the day. But do what you can. Just don't buy the cheapest option in the world because it's the cheapest, A range day that's full of malfunction clearing when you really just wanted to practice reload drills or follow-up shots or just have fun, it can ruin the day. Okay, you can get really frustrated really quickly if you're clearing reloads every second shot. I had that experience with, I believe it was Browning 9mm ammunition. Now it was really cheap Browning ammunition. It wasn't like any of their good stuff, but it was just really cheap 9mm ammunition, and every single shot, I had to clear my function, and I was like, well, why would I ever want to shoot this ever? Same thing with Sig's Steel Case 45. Garbage. All right, so now let's go to the opposite end of the spectrum. Let's say you don't want cheap range ammunition. You're looking for really good precision shooting match grade ammunition, okay? Well, there is no type of shooting in the world that will show you how picky firearms can be more than precision shooting, okay? When you're trying everything you can to make the group, your group size as small as possible to make it as precise as possible, you're going to notice every little thing that your firearm likes and dislikes, and you're going to notice it has very specific preferences. If you're wondering why, this mostly comes down to the machining of your chamber and your barrel in general, as well as the barrel to receiver fit, especially in bolt actions. And the bolt fit itself also has some serious implications to accuracy, okay? So quality does have a say in how accurate your firearm can be, okay? A big say, actually. And I think we went over this a good bit in the bedding versus chassis systems episode. Go back and check that out. So, we could do a whole episode on why certain barrels or barreled actions are more accurate than others. But when it comes to match grade ammunition, quality is everything, okay? When you're testing your precision rifle, you're going to need to try out different match grade ammunition. And the term match grade is a term used to describe something as competition ready, meaning the quality is at the top of that spectrum for that manufacturer. This is the best stuff they make, and it's competition ready, okay? You also need to figure out what projectile weight works best for your firearm's barrel twist. For example, my 6.5 Creedmoor has a 1 1/8 twist rate, which for those of you who don't understand, there's twisting that happens in the barrel. There are grooves, lands and grooves in the barrel that twist. And the 1 1/8 means that the twists do a full rotation every 8 inches, okay? That's a twist rate, and they can be faster or slower. So my 6.5 Creedmoor with a 1 1/8 twist barrel, that's 24 inches, really likes 140 grain ammunition all the way up to 147 grain ammunition. That's its sweet spot, okay? So you're going to fine-tune, what weight projectiles you're going to use. And then, let's back up. There's a lot that goes into the twist rates of and their correlation with projectile weights, okay? Stabilizing the bullet is really important, and what weight stabilizes best in what twist rate is kind of a pretty in-depth topic, and there's a lot of arguments that happen, especially with stuff like semi-automatic guns where people are very wrong and don't seem to understand why they're wrong. I won't go too far into that because I actually know some people who are going to get irritated with that statement, so I'm going to leave them be for now. We'll do a twist rate episode probably. But the bare bones basic understanding that you need to know when it comes to twist rates is the faster the twist, the heavier bullets you can stabilize. A light bullet that is spinning way too fast will have issues, and a bullet that's spinning way too slow will also have issues. There's sweet spots, right? Do some research when you're looking into your firearm. If you don't want to go out and buy 10 boxes of different weights, you can Google, guys. Usually, what projectile weight certain twist rates prefer are pretty well documented, okay? Like I said, there are some arguments on some stupid ends, but if you're like, oh, what is my 308 gonna like? put your twist rate in there, and you're probably going to get a general idea of how heavy bullets you should be using for maximum accuracy. You can shoot anything. You know, if you have a 308 that is safe and functioning, you can shoot 308 ammunition no matter what. But when you're looking to maximize accuracy, you're looking to really make sure you use a specific bullet weight. So let's say now you have figured out the bullet weight you want to work with. Well, now you need to look into different ammunition choices to see what your firearm prefers. Some commonly loved match grade ammunition is Hornady ELD match, Federal gold medal match with the Berger projectiles or Sierra Match King projectiles, Nosler match grade boat tail hollow points, etc., etc., etc. There's a lot of ammunition out there. Browning has the Long Range Pro, which is actually pretty decent ammunition from my experience. This ammunition is not specifically designed for hunting or plinking. It's made to a really, really high quality standard, tighter tolerances, more precise powder charges from round to round. They're more consistent with each other. This makes the quality as high as possible from the factory, okay? You might have two different 6.5 Creedmoor rifles, and one might prefer or perform better with Hornady ELD match, and one might perform better with Federal gold medal match. You never know, right? You got to figure your firearm out. They're all different, and you really just need to test them and figure out what's going to work best with them. Now, let's say you've done this. Let's say you've gone to the range and you fired a good bit of ammunition through your firearm, and you found one specific ammunition that it really likes, and it's doing really well with that ammunition, okay? Can you improve it further from there? Because it's factory ammunition. It is match grade, but it's still factory ammunition. Well, from there, if you're an experienced shooter or a reloader, you can increase that precision past the factory ammunition level. You can do custom reloads, okay? First of all, only reload ammunition if you have experience, training, and knowledge, because you can put yourself in some serious danger if you are not careful, okay? Or if you mess up a reload. You can really, you could end up looking like Kentucky Ballistics. I mean, if you haven't seen that video, just Google it. You'll find it. You could look like that if you mess up a reload, okay? So be careful, guys. But if you're someone who reloads already, you can take the bullet weight and the projectile brand of the ammunition that your gun really, really likes, and then you can get the powder charges from that brand's data sheets in that specific load, and you can fine-tune it from there. So you can go plus or minus like 1/10 of a grain in powder. And you can do what's called a ladder test, where you have different increments of very fine-tuned adjustments of powder charges from the factory standard, because that factory standard is now your control, right? This new factory standard or match grade standard that you've found shoots the best, you're working off of this data sheet, and you go plus or minus, and you see if a small adjustment in powder charge, or how deep you're seating bullets and all that, that can really change and improve accuracy even more. I've seen 3/4 MOA guns go down to half MOA. I've seen half MOA guns go down to a 0.1 MOA. Okay, you can fine-tune this stuff and come out with a really, really accurate firearm. And if you go this extra step, you're going to help put yourself a little further ahead of the competition who aren't doing this. Okay, most competition shooters who are precision competition shooters, like this is their life, they're going to be doing custom hand loads. Okay, but if you're trying to compete at the entry level, amateur level, and some of them aren't doing it, it might give you a slight step ahead, okay? Remember, your fundamentals and your practice is everything, so don't skip out on that. So, we've gone over some basics on range ammunition, precision shooting ammunition, match grade ammunition. And I'm not going to get into projectiles specifically when it comes to the match grade precision shooting side, guys, because some people prefer full metal jacket. Some people prefer boat tail hollow points. Some people prefer ballistic tip. I'm not going to get into that side of things. I'm just going to let you know what you should be looking out for when you're looking to get into this, precision shooting ammunition. And then back, we're going through different things. I don't want to get too specific because it gets kind of muddied. Let's put it that way. So, next up is self-defense / hunting. Okay. Now, there's a reason I put self-defense and hunting together, and that's because the ideal ammunition is actually very similar for the two. In both hunting and self-defense, you're looking to stop your target as fast as possible. Okay, that's the bare bones basics of it, guys. Like, you want to stop your target as fast as humanly possible. Okay, well, both self-defense ammunition and hunting ammunition are seeking to achieve the same goal, just at different, weapon platforms or ranges. Okay, I think we should start with hunting. Okay, any good hunter knows that you only want to take one shot if it's possible. In my opinion, as a hunter, your job is to take your game, but also reduce the amount of suffering that game has to experience. Okay, as much as humanly possible. I am a hunter. Okay, this is just the humane thing to do. Okay, as a hunter, I take literally zero pleasure in the suffering of animals. In fact, I despise the suffering of animals. It really, is not okay with me. So I'm so glad animal abuse is now a felony. So it's deserved. Anyone who can hurt an animal and be okay with that, and I don't mean hurt as in, oh, well, you shot him and it took him a few seconds. That's not what I mean. I mean purposely abusing or purposely, making animals suffer. That's a bad person. You should be away from that person. Don't be friends with that person. In fact, report that person. Okay? So if you're trying to reduce the amount of suffering an animal has to experience when you're hunting, first things first is shot placement. Shot placement is extremely important. You need to make sure you're hitting the target in a critical area so they do not suffer long. Also, your ammunition choice is extremely important. So if you hit a deer, let's say, with a full metal jacket projectile in a not that vital shot, or maybe you clipped a lung, or you did some damage, but because you used a full metal jacket, the bullet went all the way clean through the deer. You have now increased the chances substantially that the animal is going to bleed out over a much longer period of time, and the animal is most likely going to run away, and you might not be able to find it again. Now, don't get me wrong. I have seen kills with the full metal jacket drop dead, okay, but that's a headshot. If you get a heart shot, that's also probably going to drop pretty quick. But, you're kind of risking things, guys. If you're 200 yards away and you're using a full metal jacket, I think you're just doing it wrong. You're not giving yourself every possibility to make that thing drop as soon as possible and reduce suffering, okay? So if you shoot the deer and it bleeds out over a longer period of time instead of a short period of time, and it gets away from you and you don't manage to find it until the next day, well, you've just killed a deer for no reason. You didn't even get the meat, unless it's cold enough to where it froze overnight. That's a possibility, but in reality, most times people lose deer, they're gone, and they've lost the meat, and they killed a deer for, at this point, no reason. So we want to make sure we're harvesting that animal humanely, quickly, and safely, okay? So hollow points and soft points are very, very common in, ideal hunting ammunition because they expand inside the body of your target. As it expands, it increases the amount of damage caused by the projectile. And with proper shot placement, this can result in an instant kill. It's not always, guys, instant kills, should be everyone's goal, but it's not always 100% possible, and it's not always going to happen. Such as, with larger animals, it seems a little more rare. I have never seen an elk drop on the shot, but maybe someone has. Another ammunition type that is growing in popularity for hunting is the solid copper hollow point projectiles. This is another expanding projectile, but with no lead. Many manufacturers are now producing this ammunition, especially in subsonic form, which is really cool. But you got to make sure if you're shooting suppressed and you're using subsonics, make sure the projectile still has enough velocity and energy to do the damage needed. Now, as you get up in bigger animals, guys, you need a lot more energy to do the damage. I believe elk, they say 1,700 or 2,000 foot-pounds of energy. If you're going subsonic, that's going to be real hard to hit, guys. So be careful. Make sure you're being smart and, think about what you're using against what you're, using it against. You don't want to wing something. But a lot of these solid copper projectiles expand into absolutely devastating shapes. So they're really cool. They do a lot of damage when used properly and implemented properly. I have a feeling in the near future, with the way things are going, they might get banned for some stupid, unknown reason. They look scary, you know. The military is not allowed to use hollow points because it's considered inhumane, which, if you guys really think about it, in war, you're shooting someone, okay? Now, a full metal jacket makes them bleed out over a longer period of time. That's increased suffering. A hollow point does the opposite. However, I think the idea is that it gives them a chance of saving them, but I'm sure there's a lot of people who were unsavable that would have preferred to have been shot with the hollow point. If they were unsavable and they had to suffer, it seems more inhumane to me than just hitting them with something hard, you know, but I digress. Well, actually, it's a perfect transition. What do you know? Self-defense ammunition is very, very similar. You're looking for ammunition that will not over-penetrate. It will stop your threat as fast as possible. And this is where we get right back into hollow points, right? Like I said, they're very similar, ideas. You're looking to stop a target quickly. Hollow point technology has come a long, long way in the past 20 years. And there are now way more options than ever. Do a lot of research. I do a lot of research when you're deciding what you're going to carry and trust with your life, okay? I've done a lot of research, guys, on hollow points for handguns. And like I said, the technology has come a long way, but you still got to be really careful. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. For about 3 or 4 years, I carried Critical Defense by Hornady. And by the way, guys, it is pronounced Hornady, not Hornaday. It's not D-A-Y. It's H-O-R-N-A-D-Y. Hornady, not Hornaday. Just, that bothers me so much. I don't understand who started Hornaday, but that's like the thing. So no, it's Hornady. Okay, calm down. But I carried Hornady Critical Defense for probably 3 or 4 years, give or take. I don't know. Not entirely sure on the data. But I was fine, and I trusted the ammunition because I really, really liked Hornady as a manufacturer. I've had good luck with a lot of their product, and a lot of their ammunition is some of my favorites. So I figured, why not carry their defensive ammunition? But then I heard of 2 local shooting incidents where Hornady Critical Defense was actually used, and it over-penetrated a target. In fact, one of them went through the shoulder and back of someone and came out and embedded itself in a car. So I got a little sketched out, a little worried. I didn't know the full details of every, I can't go look at crime scene data and figure out all the factors that went into it. But I was a little upset about that. So I decided to do some more research, look into FBI statistics, look into other law enforcement agencies, because they do a lot of data research before they procure in a lot of instances, okay? And I ended up switching to federal HST ammunition, 124 grains. The 147s are really good too, but 124 is still, pretty solid. Why did I switch, guys? Why am I worried that if I hit my target and it over-penetrates a little bit, why am I worried about that? Well, the reason is you are responsible for every projectile that comes out of your firearm. Even if you're justified and you're, doing the right thing and you're defending yourself or defending others, if you miss and hit somebody else, or if you over-penetrate your target and hit somebody else, first of all, that's on you, and that's on your conscience, and you have to live with that. So one of those, examples of where that's dangerous is in a home defense situation when someone breaks in the house. And if you were to miss, and let's say you struck a loved one in the room nearby, do you want to live with that? Do you defending your family and end up hurting your family? That's not ideal. So you want your hollow points to expand reliably and stop in the target that you're trying to engage. Obviously, you should be engaging targets at a safe angle, but real life's messy, guys, and real life is hectic. So I will make no statements further than that. So you're liable for every bullet that comes out of your firearm. So what do we do from there? So we look into hollow points that you can trust. Like I said, I switched to one of the most popular self-defense ammunition types, federal HSTs, because through my research, I found that they expand extremely reliably. They're considered some of the most reliably expanding hollow points on the market. Okay? I like it. I shoot it. It works. Police departments are also adopting and have for a long time used spear gold dot ammunition. That is another very common defensive ammunition. But there are tons of good hollow points on the market. I mean, and I'm not saying that Hornady critical defense is bad. I just made a decision to switch for my own conscience and well-being and, clear mind. I just wanted to make the switch and feel safe about it, okay? But there are a lot of other, a lot of other hollow points on the market and other self-defense ammunition types that aren't hollow points. Another example is black Talon ammunition, which you can no longer buy brand new. It's no longer being produced. It used to be produced by Winchester back in the day, and it was very popular. Winchester stopped producing it due to some bad publicity that you can look into on your own time. There was a shooting, blah, blah, blah. They tried to ban things. They didn't try to ban things, but there was outrage over this specific incident, so Winchester pulled it and stopped producing it. Some police departments are also using Remington Golden Saber and Winchester PDX-1. Those were a couple of the hollow points that I found other police departments using. So, once again, don't trust me and don't trust this specific police department. Go look and research it on your own. You can dig up statistics. You can dig up independent testing. Heck, YouTube's actually a pretty good source of very common and reasonable testing. Now, it's not the most scientific place in the world, but you can, if you're doing a side-by-side test, you start to see, things. You start to see, I don't know how to describe what I was going to say. You start to see patterns, right? You'll see which ones tend to expand more often than others. You see which ones tend to over-penetrate more than others. Look into all this, guys. You can also get the solid copper projectiles for handguns as well, by the way. It's not just for hunting. You also get synthetic projectiles, which is something that I'm not very experienced with. But from my understanding, these synthetic, I'm not going to call them polymer because I don't know if they're exactly a polymer, but they're a synthetic material. These projectiles move at insane speeds because they're extremely lightweight. And from what I hear, their wound cavities are pretty nasty. But I don't have much experience with these lightweight material projectiles, so do your own research and before buying these for self-defense. I don't want to be the one to tell you what you should buy. If you're using a shotgun for home defense, because we've been talking about rifles and pistols for the majority of this episode. By the way, when it comes to hunting, if you're hunting a deer with a shotgun, why? Why? If your state doesn't allow it and you're using like buckshot, I think you're a bad person. Like, it's pretty simple. If you can use slugs with a shotgun, fine. If you're using buckshot to shoot a deer like 75 yards away, you're kind of a bad person. Just saying. Just putting it out there. You can disagree with me. That's fine. But if your state doesn't make you do that, why are you doing it? Lazy. Moving on. Lost my cord. Here we go. All right, so I got a little mad for a second. I started thinking about this. I met a couple guys lately, that were hunting deer with shotguns on a regular basis. And I was like, well, hopefully they're just shooting at like 20 yards, 50, maybe 50 yards. With a good choke, you can push 50 yards. But then they were talking about like 75 yards, 100 yards, and I'm really not down with that, okay? I'm not down with that. It's lazy, and it's not ideal. So don't do that, guys. But shotguns are pretty good for home defense, okay? And not in the way Joe Biden tells us to do them, not where we shoot them up into the sky, because that's for one illegal and two stupid. If you want to use a shotgun for self-defense, I would lean more towards like the classic double-aught buckshot. It's pretty savage. Birdshot does have the advantage of like it sends more pellets towards your target, but it lacks lethality. So something to toy with, something to think about. I wouldn't recommend slugs from a shotgun in the same way that I would double-aught buck, because people's tendency to not aim as well with shotguns I don't know, man. That kind of scares me. Like, people don't tend to aim shotguns as much in defensive situations. They kind of point shoot because they're shotguns. And the idea of someone doing that with a slug and it going through someone's room and hitting a child or a neighbor or a family member that's in the house, that's not great. So maybe stick to buckshot. Okay. And the reason I would say stick to buckshot is there's pretty large pellets, guys. These pellets are pretty hefty. They're going to do a lot of damage. And if you use the buckshot that's optimized for very tight shot patterns, which you can buy, and then use a really good choke on your shotgun to further tighten the shot pattern, you're not spraying an entire wall when you use a shotgun for home defense. You're spraying a pretty short area, especially in the distances you'll be using them in your house. So looking at that stuff, if that's your ideal option, if you really don't want to use a handgun, look into a shotgun. Make sure you get a light on it for home defense. You want to be able to see what you're shooting at, okay? But reduce that spread. Reduce it, and it reduces your chances of hitting unintended targets. So, once again, just something to think about. I'm not telling you what to do. I am not a trainer, nor am I a personal advisor. We're just going over different ammunition types, where they're good, where they're not good, okay? Just talking about it. Just a conversation we're having here, okay? All right. The last thing I would like to go over with self-defense ammunition is it's very, very, very important, is make sure you are testing your carry gun with the hollow points you intend to use. Okay, guys and gals, some firearms are extremely, extremely picky with hollow points. Hollow points have a flatter nose than full metal jackets, so they may not feed reliably in certain handguns. 1911s, for example, are notoriously picky with hollow points. I mean notoriously picky with hollow points. If you're going to trust your life to a certain handgun and a certain ammunition type or ammunition brand in that handgun, you need to test them to make sure they work well together, okay? This is a joint operation here. It's not just your firearm. You can't just say, my firearm has always worked great, and then buy some random hollow point and toss it in there and say, well, it's a good firearm, it's going to work. It may not. I've seen Glocks that don't like certain ammunition types, okay? It happens. So think, really think, really test it. If you're gonna trust you gotta be so sure. Your life is at stake, and you may not shoot these hollow points ever again. But if you do have to, man, you better be sure they work. You better be sure they work. That stresses me out. You don't want the system to fail when your life depends on it. So get more than one box of that ammunition. Because they often come in 20 or 25 round boxes for hollow points. So get a couple of them. Get a couple boxes. Go to the range. Put some rounds downrange through your defensive carry firearm. And once you know that firearm is working great with that specific ammunition, then you can feel safer carrying it, okay? You just need it. You need to know. You need to know for sure. My 1911, I have a Sig Emperor Scorpion 1911. It loves Hydra shocks. Federal Hydra shocks are, as far as I know, not produced anymore. These were the precursors to HSTs. From my understanding, if I'm wrong, please correct me. You can drop it in the comments. Please correct me if I'm wrong. The Hydra shocks work fantastic through that 1911. But I put some of the Remington hollow points through it. Didn't like it. Every round was a failure. Or every shot there was a malfunction of some kind. It didn't like the Sig hollow points. I don't really like Sig to begin with. Their ammunition's been very hit or miss for me. Actually, it's been mostly misses for me. So if I was going to say one ammunition is not great, as much as I don't like Remington stuff, guys, I've had a lot of issues with Sig ammunition. So just keep your eye out for that. I've seen Sig V crowns, which is their defensive ammunition. I've seen a lot of them just come messed up out of the box. I've seen projectiles pushed into the casing out of the box. I've seen issues, quality control issues more often than not. But just make sure you're testing out your carry handgun with your carry ammo, because it's got to work. It's got to work when it's got to work, guys. It has to work when it has to work. It's that simple. I'm trying to think. By the way, guys, if you have an M1 carbine that you have a flashlight on, great self-defense gun, by the way. Very handy, very lightweight, low recoil, 30 carbine you can get in solid copper projectiles. I want to build one so bad. I want to build an M1 carbine with I want to get like a beat up M1 carbine that no one really cares about. It's not really worth anything anymore. Change the barrel on it. Change the stock out to a modern collapsible stock with a vertical foregrip on the front. Put a rail on top and it's a threaded muzzle with a suppressor. Boy, the nighttime defensive gun. 30 carbine, suppressed, solid copper projectiles, red dot, and a flashlight. It's go time. That would be so much fun. It'd be an expensive project. I don't know what it takes to actually machine the barrel for those. I mean, I can get a blank. I don't know what it would take. I don't know if they're pinned in, if they're pressed in, if they're threaded in. I have to look into it. But it'd be really fun. So, possible future project. Guys, a couple of you commented recently, and I really appreciate that. Some of you have even reached out an email. Once again, appreciate that too. Commenting is great engagement for YouTube, so keep that up. Really appreciate it. But hopefully this basic rundown of ammunition selection helps someone out. I know this. I know some more experienced shooters are probably listening to this episode and rolling their eyes because it's simple. But I want to make sure we're helping new people that are new to the firearms community, because those men and women are important, and we don't want them to feel left out, and we don't want them to be left out. We want to make sure they're involved and they're learning and they're knowledgeable and they're safe. Okay. So I am going to be putting out episodes just like I have been for both experienced shooters and new shooters. Okay. I want to make sure I'm treating everyone the same and we're getting information out that can help somebody out there. Okay. If you have any serious questions though, feel free to reach out on Instagram or our email. Instagram is TBR Gunworks. Facebook is TBR Gunworks. Email is tbrgunworks@gmail.com. I mean, we've made it pretty simple for you guys. Website, tbrgunworks.com. I mean, guys, it's simple. TBR Gunworks, okay? Got a new lathe coming in. I'm going to post a video of that to the YouTube as well. That's going to be a fun new lathe at the house. But thank you so much for watching or listening. Subscribe if you can on YouTube. Like, comment, all that fun stuff. Leave a review if you're listening to the podcast on podcast websites or podcast apps. Guys, it would really help us out. We are beating our goals. Like I said, we passed 500. I'm looking to really bump that up. I wonder if we can hit 1,000 before, let's say, I don't know, guys. Let's see. Our goal was to hit 500 by June. I'd say I'd like to hit 1,000 by October. That'd be awesome. So if you want to help us hit 1,000 by October, share it with your friends. Leave those reviews. Like, these things will help push the podcast out to more people, because the podcast websites don't want to advertise. I'm not saying advertise money. I'm saying push their push podcasts unless they have good reviews, unless they have concurrent listeners, all that fun stuff. So help us out. We are growing, and we really appreciate those of you who have helped us grow and who have helped us maintain and stay out here. Thank you guys so much. I have future content planned for YouTube, guys. I actually started filming on one project, had issues with that project, so that got bumped to later. We also have a lot of work going on, and we have a baby, so we're doing our best to stay on this and not forget about this project. I want this podcast to go far. I want the channel to do something in the future, and I want to help people. So, don't forget about us. If we miss a week or two here and there, we're doing our best. I promise you we're doing our best. More guests to come. Really excited to have guests. Really been great so far. Zeb has killed it. Zeb was awesome. Mark Smith was great. If you want look at firearm training, where to get it, if you should get it, go look at Mark Smith's episode. If you're an aspiring gunsmith or gun maker, go look at Zeb's episode. We have tons of content, guys. Go back and listen. If this is your first episode, go back and listen to others. I think we're going to have something that for everyone. It's not very specific. It's firearms in general. Go back and listen, guys. Thank you so much again for watching or listening. Have a great week. Remember, every gun law is an infringement, and we'll see you next time.